Yeah, the counseling is in all sorts and forms of counseling. Drug counseling, whatever, marital counseling, personal counseling, spiritual counseling. The counseling crosses all parameters. Counseling is counseling, and the methods used here will work with any type of counseling situation. And so far, we've had very good success with people we're working with. And so one thing that's done here is we have the session, and then we have follow-up accountability sessions to make sure that people are implementing stuff and how it's going. And so in the beginning, we do very close sessions for about a week if needed, and then we'll start spacing them out a little bit, further apart, depending on what the difficulty is, depending on how embedded it is, how much work we need to do. But I think we try to keep the donation rates very low for that, so that people can actually afford to do this. And since it's done over Skype online, it can be implemented from anywhere in the world, which is the good news. And the good news is what we do is when I give the counseling session, I will record it. The Skype call gets recorded. It gets uploaded to YouTube. Now, don't freak out because I said YouTube. It's not put on a public broadcast. There is one where it's you get the URL, and only the person that has the URL is allowed to view it. So it's only given to the client. It's given to Siddhananda, to Satchidananda, and myself. And once in a while shared with Dharma, because they're all in the field of counseling as well. And so that they can understand and go forward in the field of counseling and can understand, and they move in and also work in the field of counseling. So those are the only people that view any of the sessions. And so it's beneficial because in this way the client can go back and review it at any time, and they lose nothing out of the session. Whereas if you're just regularly going somewhere and having a session, you talk about so much stuff and it gets lost in the moment. You hear maybe a chord of what's being said. So when it's recorded and you could go back, you don't miss any of the points. They're always available. And so that's the way we work here. I do also have available for energetic sessions, but those are much more costly because it takes a lot more, a lot of energy to do that. And that's only available to people that are in the area. It's beneficial to do that for somebody that's really in heavy drug addiction, but when I was doing the energetic work with that, for them it would be like twice a day, and then start cutting back on their drugs. And so they're not having the withdrawal symptoms. If I'm working with people to get them off of medications, etc., we establish a good firm base, and then once again it starts to be decreased slowly, so they're not having any kind of withdrawal symptoms in that. And that gives them the time to psychologically make some shifts, and energetically make some shifts, and then physically make shifts as well at the same time. And so that I really feel that this type of counseling is really needed, and it picks up where AA and things leave off. It's great to go to the rehab centers with drug counseling and get dried out, get off the initial drugs, that's fine. But unfortunately, unless one is having ongoing counseling and can get to the heart of the matter and the problem and can see where one needs to make the changes in their life and are willing to implement them, then when they get to these stressors, they will just go back into the same drama again and start reusing. So there needs to be some radical shifts radical shifts that take place in one's life. And, in order to do this, there needs to be some changes implemented, and one has to change their psychology and break through the conditionings and be able to see them for what they are. And then one can move forward. Yeah.
How does what you do differ from traditional counseling?
Well, I think maybe you can answer that a little more, since you're in that field. You've been trained as a traditional counselor, and then you know what I bring to the table. Mm-hmm. So I think maybe you could answer that a little better than I can, actually, since you've seen both.
Right. A lot of the methods of counseling is to talk about how you feel and go back into your past and how you feel about that, and it has a lot more to do with the storylines.
Yeah.
And I think what your counseling is, to some extent, is digging into what those storylines are, but it's digging into it so that you find out what's driving you, mm-hmm. and how it's manifesting in your current life, and how really go beyond those stories and to start changing your behavior, which in turn kind of changes your whole your energy. I don't know. It's like
it can change the way the brain functions. If you start changing the behavior, the actions, it changes the way the brain is programmed and the way it functions, and it can also change the brain chemistry. So this is very important. Yeah, here it's not to establish a better story. And we're not going to, establish the pity party, and yes, you have so right to feel so, all of that drama. We're not doing that. Here it's mainly a shift to bring the client to a point that they can see themselves what the story is and what's driving it, and find ways that break through it. And it's quite effective. But they have to see it for themselves. You can't just sit and tell them what it is. The light bulb has to go off for them. These insights have to come out for them. And then they're the ones that have to key into what needs to change. And then they have to be willing to follow through with those changes in order to establish a different pattern, and in order to back out of where they're at. Yeah, and make a big change. But there are ways to do that. And so what's given here, I give the tools for them to be able to do that and make those connections themselves so that they can get balanced in their life. We also give, meditation, breath, all of these different things that will aid them to be able to put these same things into effect. And it gets them ready for the path. If at that point, and they go into counseling and they want to continue to go further in their life, they're set up and ready to go forward in the path. And so the hallmarks of the counseling here is honesty, integrity, transparency, simplicity, the same hallmarks as the path. One has to get honest with themselves, number one. That's the first point of honesty. For any type of counseling, you have to get honest with the situation as it is, rather than your projection of how you think it is. And this is the first thing that's looked at. Okay? What is the actuality of it versus what is the projection about it? What's the drama surrounding it? What's the actuality versus the drama? And we move forward from there. And then we start cutting through that to where they can actually see the difference between the two. And so that's the way it goes. It's pretty simple.
You talked about, changing the brain chemistry. How do you feel about the medication, people being on medication for a lot of their mental illnesses?
Well, it depends on what the medication is and what the mental illness is. For some things, come here, Raj, come here. Don't just sit there and bark at me, little man. Come on, you want to come sit up here? Come on. Come on, you can do it. Step over the cord. There's a cord on the ground, and he's like, Come on, you can do it. I know you can do it. Come on. He comes up to the court and he stops. And he stands there and looks at me.
He's such a prince.
He is a prince. You can challenge yourself. There you go. You jumped over it. You did it, little man. He challenged his conditioning and he prevailed.
Doggy counseling.
That's it. Do the happy dance. Do the happy dance. He made it. He has challenged himself and he has done it. Big boy. There you go. Oh. Yeah, so depending on what it is, something like schizophrenia where they've had a severe break, on that, you have to be at a point where you can have some sort of grounding somewhere. So things like that have had really severe breaks like that, that's really difficult to work with. For that, I would probably say it's better to remain absolutely on medication, And then for other things, when you're having severe bipolar, more than likely you'll have to remain on medication for quite some time, if not the rest of the life. But again, most things as depression and that type of a thing, absolutely it can be turned around. Absolutely, that can be turned around for sure, to where no medication may be needed. That's a pretty easier one to back out of. Trauma, PTSD, those types of traumas, they can be turned around. Okay, anxiety things can be turned around. Drug issues can be turned around. All of these things come to finding out what the stressors are and stuff, and then getting a handle on that, and you being able to back out of it and cut through it in a way that it no longer has that hook. Yeah. So all of these things, they're possible. I've seen great things come with people in moving through their situations and changing them. The transient world, it's transient. It can be changed. The body and the brain is programmed by consciousness. So as the consciousness and the awareness and interaction changes, then it's going to change the way the brain functions, and also the chemistry of it is going to change. It's quite possible. If somebody is really in a difficult situation, then they may need some energetic work along with it, But not all people need the energetic work with it.
And I know with like traditional addiction counseling and sort of what they call recovery, your recovery process, they say that once an addict, always an addict. So people go around saying, "Hi, my name is whatever, and I'm an addict."
I'm an addict, yeah.
For the rest of their life. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that's one thing that really needs to be changed, because it's in one way a self-fulfilling prophecy, and in another way it gives them this loophole out. And to say, well, it's an illness, it's an illness and I'm ill and you don't understand and I can't change it, it's in my genes, I'm, pre-programmed to do this, therefore they justify it in some strange way, So yeah, no, I don't say that. In the beginning, yes, I think it's important to cop to the fact you're an addict. Okay, in the beginning, that's really an important thing to distinguish that. One has to get to the realistic thing that, yes, I'm an addict. Okay, but then as one progresses, then they have to come to the point of understanding they're an addictive personality. And this then puts some things back in their court. It gives them some more sense of control of things, that they are the ones that need to control and need to be, vigilant as to how this plays out. Okay? And so, yeah, as an addictive personality, one many times have many types of addictions. And everybody I think in this society has some sort of a driving addiction at some time in their life, whether it's for food, whether it's for non-productive relationships, whether it's drugs, whether it's alcohol. It doesn't matter. An addiction is an addiction and something one uses to fill a hole and try to fulfill themselves. But usually in these addictions, it's not going to do it. Okay? And so it just keeps them in this tornado and spin downward spiral that they can't get out of.
And what I see a lot of is rehab centers being real like a revolving door.
Yeah.
You know, basically, people go out and they feel good, but they come right back in and relapse. What do you think is the cause of, relapse, like recurring relapse?
Yeah, I think it's because, not enough is done. They haven't gone in to really change things. It's like I said, it all stops too early. It stops too early. And it's really important to have that ongoing counseling. Really important to have the ongoing counseling and to establish the way to back out of these triggers, because if you don't back out of these triggers, you don't find out what they are, you don't come to resolving it, then when you have the stressor, you're going to go back and do the same thing to numb out again. So this is what one needs to do. One has to come to wholeness and wellness, not just get dry off the drug. That's not enough. That's not enough. One really has to be able to look at these things and go beyond these triggers and find out what's driving it and cut the root of it. Not just prune the branches. That's not going to do it.
And what I like about what you emphasize is accountability.
Mm-hmm.
So you can talk a little bit about that. How does that play out in getting people forward?
Yeah, accountability is very important. It's not enough just to talk about what you need to do. One has to be held accountable for that, and one has to see that they're making those steps. So that's why accountability is in place. It's not enough just to talk about it. And in here, when we do that, I say, what is your list? What is it you're going to do? And then we check, have you done it? If not, why not? And so we continue to work on that accountability. And so once they start making these baby steps, they find out they can do it. And with each success, it becomes a little easier.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. And so hopefully this clears up a little bit about the counseling. And it is something different that's not out there. It's very hard-hitting. Like I said, it's Get Real Counseling. And because it's hard-hitting and it is real. And we want to see people get well. We want to see them come to wholeness, not just to get them dried out and where they're just barely hanging on by fingernails the rest of their life trying to not drink. We want to, or not take drugs, or not numb out, or not find an escapism. We want to come to the root of the problem so that it's no longer in play and driving that, driving any kind of an addiction, and we don't want to see them go from one addiction to a different addiction, or from any counseling, how to break the mind spin of depression and how to get that turned around in a viable way that one can go forward and can find benefit in life and let go of that old story and the old drama that's been driving it. And it can be done. I've seen it work many times. Traumas, one can go beyond traumas. They can live a viable life. So it's just knowing how to get to the roots of the problem, and let's pull those roots out. So thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.